Also, Prime Minister, we've seen a spike in anti-Asian violence in different parts of our country. In BC, an elderly man with dementia was shoved out of a store by an assailant that brought up remarks about COVID-19. We now have a Conservative leadership candidate that is asking for Dr. Tam to be fired and is accusing her, the WHO and China, of being in cahoots. What is your message to Canadians as they see this?
Intolerance and racism have no place in our country. Canada has succeeded because of our diversity. It is one of our greatest strengths. And the millions of Canadians of all different backgrounds who are working together, many of them on the front lines to help their fellow Canadians, deserve better than this from all of us. We need to continue in our resolve to be an open, welcoming, respectful country. And I think all Canadians expect that of every politician.
Well, a perfectly orchestrated duet, a media party journalist blending an alleged attack on a Chinese-Canadian senior citizen out west with a legitimate question as to the ongoing tenure of Dr. Theresa Tam, Justin Trudeau's chief public health officer. Theresa Tam getting every single possible piece of advice, every decision wrong. Her advice not to wear face masks, her advice not to close borders, her knee-jerk reaction back in January calling people racist. They were concerned about no quarantines. Everything you could get wrong she has, quite likely because she continues to work for the World Health Organization, but by fusing that with a question about an alleged racial attack in Vancouver, well, that just set up that softball right perfectly over the plate for Justin Trudeau to hit a home run in his mind. But is it true? Is criticizing Trudeau or Theresa Tam inherently racist? That's what the Chinese embassy says. It says even referring to the source of the virus as China is racist, and complaining about China's delay in warning the world, that's racist. Well, we'll talk to the man at the center of the kerfuffle. The question that was put to Trudeau was about a Conservative Party leadership candidate who has recently publicly called for the firing of Theresa Tam. His name is Derek Sloan. He's the MP from Hastings, Lennox, and Addington. He's running for the Tory leadership, and he joins us now via Skype. Hi, Mr. Sloan. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks a lot for having me on here. I'm pleased to be here.
Well, I know that my colleague Cian Bexty did a biographical style interview with you some weeks ago, so I would refer our viewers to that if they want to catch up a little bit. I'd prefer to talk with you about this current kerfuffle. Why don't we start off with your case as opposed to the media liberal criticism of it? What is your view on Theresa Tam, and how did you express it?
Right. Well, so I should point out that my criticism has nothing to do with obviously her race or her gender. It has to do with decisions that she made, and you laid them out very well earlier on in this program here. We know that Taiwan, very early, December 31st, alerted the World Health Organization of this pneumonia-like flu that was coming out of China. China, of course, started arresting doctors and other whistleblowers. The very day after that, January 1st, Taiwan began screening. And today, they've had under 500 total cases, and I think about 6 deaths. And, you listed some other things that Theresa Tam did. She believed the information that China was putting out, that the virus was not transmissible from human to human. Taiwan and other countries were giving us some strong indication that that was not the case. They waited until very late to implement travel bans when the U.S. and European countries and Taiwan were already banning and screening flights and other types of things. So we wait. I mean, another thing, she was part of a task force that decided to give away 16 million tons of personal protective equipment to China, and then turned around and said that, masks are not helpful to us. So, I mean, I may not have even mentioned everything. It's hard to remember it all. But the fact is that she gave us poor advice. And, when that type of thing happens, if we were playing a game of hockey, if you score on your own net, the coach is going to bench you. And I'm saying we got to bench Tam.
Yeah. You know, the trick that the liberals and the media use here is the trouble with criticizing China, because China is the name of a country. It's the name of a brutal dictatorship, the Chinese Communist Party, but it's also the name of an ethnicity. So criticizing the Chinese virus or the Chinese government is very easily rhetorically elided into a criticism of the Chinese race. But as you point out, Taiwan, which is also Chinese, they're very hostile to Communist China because they know Communist China lies and spreads pandemics. So, I mean, it's obvious to me that you can criticize the Chinese government without being against the Chinese ethnicity, and I think you showed it by citing Taiwan. I think that's a trick, and I wasn't surprised to see Trudeau use it against you, but I want to point out that some conservatives have actually jumped on Justin Trudeau's bandwagon. I see Michael Chong has implied that your criticism was racist. I'm troubled that we are buying that Communist Party of China line that to criticize China is to be racist.
Yeah, I think it is an issue, and frankly, I wonder if anybody saw the video that I put out and read the letter that I put out. All of this stems from a 3-minute video I put out on my social media and a letter that I sent out to Conservative Party members. If anyone watches that video or reads the letter, there is no mention in there about Dr. Tam's ethnic background or anything of that nature. So, you know, for some of these people who are making comments, I wonder, did they just read the headlines or did they actually read what I put out?
Well, I don't think they even read anything at all. They just thought, we're starting to lose public support. Theresa Tam has made so many strange statements. We need to shift gears. Here's a quick clip from your video presentation that got the ball rolling. Here, take a look at this.
One of the issues with Justin Trudeau's handling of this situation has been his reliance on the advice of Dr. Theresa Tam. Theresa Tam, we sent an email out today asking, does she work for Canada or for China? And I encourage you to read that email. There's some interesting information in there. It was Dr. Theresa Tam who is on a special panel on the World Health Organization right now. She also parrots their information at every available opportunity. We know for a fact that China covered up many details concerning the coronavirus outbreak. There's been a study that was done in England that suggested if China had come out with the truth, we could have potentially avoided up to 90% of the cases that we have today. The World Health Organization parroted Chinese misinformation coming out from the Communist Party of China. And basically what they said was that, no, there's no human-to-human transmission, when they knew very well that there was. They said, no, there's no reason to have travel bans, when in fact the countries that did early travel bans were very successful in keeping the number of cases at bay. Theresa Tam followed the World Health Organization every step along the way. She accused Canadians who were concerned about this virus initially for being racist. She also suggested that travel bans were unnecessary. And as late as January 14th, she suggested that human-to-human transmission of the coronavirus was not happening, when very credible evidence suggested that it was.
Well, look, I agree with you that the criticism of you was shallow, it was false, and I think it was not informed. I don't think people actually read your publication, which I thought, I mean, frankly, it's what we've been saying around here for a while. It's even what Jason Kenney, the Premier of Alberta, has been suggesting, that he was not willing to wait for Theresa Tam to approve certain medicines because of her connection to the World Health Organization and its communist Chinese bosses. I mean, I really don't think it's a controversial position to say that China runs the World Health Organization. But I just want to press you one more time. I see that a number of conservatives have thrown you under the bus here too. My own hunch is they're just trying to virtue signal and show how holier than thou they are. But I find it dispiriting when conservatives engage in the kind of race-baiting racial politics of the left. Do you have anything to say about that? I mean, I know you're caucus colleagues with Michael Chong, but he's just one of several who took a swipe at you.
Well, I like to maintain a posture of respect towards my caucus colleagues, but I would say this: the party is yes, I support the public face of the party, but the party is made up of the party members. And I can tell you, Ezra, I have received nothing but strong support from party membership over what's happening right now. And we're in the middle of a leadership race, and those members are going to get the chance to elect a true conservative. And, you know, people are letting their true colors show. And so I'm not going to make a negative comments about anybody else. But this is the time now for those real conservatives out there to get involved and to vote for someone who's not going to apologize for being conservative and isn't going to make somebody else apologize either.
Yeah. I think that as the risk from the virus itself passes or subsides, I think it'll allow us to address some of the systemic problems here. We're too obedient to China. We're too reliant on China for critical imports, anything from medicine to, you know, basic medical equipment, even more and more on food. Putting aside the crisis of the virus itself, let's say 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, do you have any changes you would like to see in the Canada-China relationship, or even the Canada-UN, Canada World Health Organization relationship that has been clarified because of the last couple of months?
Yeah, so I've already put out a pronouncement that if I was leader of the party or prime minister of the country, I would be reviewing our World Health Organization funding and probably maybe eliminating it altogether, depending on how this turns out. As far as China is concerned, and again, you know, you've made it clear, I've made it clear, this isn't about Chinese people. This is about the Communist Party of China-led country known as China. We will see, both in this country, I hope, but in others, a complete rethinking of our relationship with China. And that's something that needs to occur.
Well, let me ask you one more thing, because we are dependent on the grassroots. In a way, it's similar to a leadership campaign. You have to talk to people by email, by video, and you know if you're on the right track if people spend a few bucks to buy a membership or even chip in a donation. So in a way, we're in the same kind of business. And I am always cheered when I see an obviously ethnic Chinese name supporting our campaigns. Every day, I see more people with a Chinese name supporting the rebel, donating, signing a petition. And it reminds me of what I said earlier. There's Taiwanese Canadians, there's mainland China Canadians who want democracy, there's persecuted minorities, whether it's Tibetans or the Falun Gong or Uyghurs. So it's a good reminder to me that just because some white liberals like Justin Trudeau and whoever that reporter was try to make it out that opposing China is being racist, there's actually other countervailing Chinese communities. So my question to you is, have you thought of, or do you have any coalitions with China democracy activists, whether they're, you know, the Epoch Times kind of people or Falun Gong? Because if you become the anti-China candidate, you could actually have a lot of Chinese people on your side because they know you're against the government, not the ethnicity.
Well, we already have a lot of that. We have ethnically Chinese people in some very high positions in our campaign, and you may know this. I know this. There's a lot of Chinese conservatives, and there's a lot of Chinese card-carrying conservatives, and I can tell you that none of those are upset by this, and in fact, they're as upset as you and I are about the misinformation coming out of communist China.
I know you're at home right now, and so you got the whole family. We're all in the same situation. Let me ask you one more question before we go.
Sure.
I observe something that Trudeau does, and I see Trump do it occasionally, and I think there's a validity to it. I mean, a few months ago, Trump wrote a tweet that was gushing with praise for President Xi Jinping of China. And it felt so false and it rang so false to me. And I thought, I bet he's doing that because there's something quiet that's happening, either a trade deal or a health deal, or there's probably some private favor that we don't quite see, and Trump is making a concession. Trump is that way sometimes. And so part of me thinks, well, maybe one of the reasons why Justin Trudeau is seem so submissive and obedient to China is because we have some critical moment. And behind the scenes, we're going to get Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor released. Or behind the scenes, China's going to send us a bunch of medical gear. But it's been 500 days since those two Michaels were kidnapped. And when we sent jets for the medical gear, they were sent back empty. So I'm wondering if you believe Trudeau is getting tough with China in quiet to let them save face, or if he's the same in private as he is in public, just obsequious and obedient.
I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think anything's going on behind the scenes in terms of some kind of crucial negotiation that's about to break. I think he's always obsequious and fawning towards other countries. I think he's concerned in a long game sense that he has to be nice, otherwise they're going to crack down on us even more. But I don't think there's any specific strategic objective right now that we're or a strategic win that we're about to have. I wish it was the case, but I doubt it. I think this is everyday Trudeau, and it doesn't matter what day of the week it is. It's the same old.
Last question for you, and it's how you started things actually on Taiwan. And we've watched Taiwan over the last few months with great admiration, how they detected the problem early, how they quarantined travelers, how they had mask production. We admire that little democracy. But they have been marginalized by all the world, including by Canada and including by the United States. I wonder if you were the Conservative leader and if you actually became the Prime Minister, if you would change Canada's relationship with that country. Would you consider giving it full diplomatic status? Right now they don't even have a formal embassy. Would you visit Taiwan perhaps? What would you do, if anything, to welcome Taiwan into the community of nations?
I would certainly consider that. And you're right, they've done an excellent job in terms of dealing with this crisis. And they know as well as anybody the true nature of the Chinese Communist Party. So I think that we as a world community, or at least a Western community, need to rethink our relationship with China and start giving these other nations in that area more love, so to speak. And I think Taiwan would be a great place to start.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know you've got your hands full at home like so many of us do. Derek Sloan, appreciate your time, and keep in touch with us as the campaign continues.
Thank you so much.
All right, there you have it. Derek Sloan is the MP for Hastings, Lennox, and Addington. He is a leadership candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.